What's going on, everybody, and welcome back. Today I'm with my guest Rex from Dynamite Dynamic Forces, and we're going to be talking about an issue that's been plaguing the comic book industry as of late. The paper quality. Not only have there just been a lot of delays, paper shortages, and just other issues amongst the different distributors, but one issue that's been bothering me the most is the quality of the paper that these comics are being printed on, so let's talk about it. So, how you doing today, Rex?
I'm doing all right, my friend. It's like balmy, almost 80 degrees out here, even though it was freezing cold this weekend. And I was alluding to a story that happened to me over the weekend, so I'll fill in the viewers and you. So as I help my daughter coach a 12U softball team where she's the head coach. So we're at a tournament this weekend in Staten Island, and it's cold and it's rainy because it's the weekend and it's the Northeast. And but before I go into the story, I want to preface this by a PSA, a public service announcement. If you have time, if you have extra money, if you have some stuff laying around like blankets, donate them to your local shelter. They need your help, and here's why. So my daughter, even at 21 years of age, will surprise me. In between a rain delay, as the rain was falling sideways, and it was about 50 degrees, and it was freezing cold, we're in the dugout, which is enclosed. And she's looking behind the bench like she dropped her phone or something, but you can reach under the bench. So I'm like, what are you doing? And all the girls are gathered there. Well, leave it to my kid in the middle of a rain delay as I'm trying to rearrange our schedule so we don't have to be in Staten Island at 5 o'clock playing. There's an injured baby squirrel in the dugout, and she insists on saving it. And I'm trying to explain to her that, maybe this is just nature. People aren't really supposed to be all over the planet like this. So maybe this is nature's way of, kind of weeding out the weaker parts of the flock. She would have none of it. So needless to say, I transferred that injured squirrel. So they found a little muffin box, those little bite muffins, put some towels underneath it. And the next thing you know, that Staten Island squirrel is now a resident of southern New Jersey. So I had to find a shelter because she was not going to let it go, because I tried to talk her into it. It was not happening. So luckily her boyfriend was there to watch the games, because during the games he had to hold the muffin box. Okay. And she was treating it like it was her baby. I can't even, it's just the most bizarre thing. But luckily, after numerous phone calls to a friend of mine who actually works at one of the no-kill shelters in my area, we found someplace that actually, because who even takes squirrels? It's not like a dog or a cat. So next thing you know, we found a place locally and dropped the injured squirrel that the team named Cornelius. Don't ask me why. And I assume that they will rehabilitate the squirrel, and the squirrel will be released in the wild. And the nice thing is, the place that we took the squirrel is very woodsy. It's a very woodsy kind of suburban area called Medford near our town. So, compared to Staten Island, I feel like we've done our little bit to help the universe over the weekend. So I had to share that story with you. That was my odd occurrence on the weekend, beyond being an old man standing in the freezing cold with, rain coming sideways. It was unreal. And today it's 80 degrees. Yeah. So there you go. Now so I burned 3 minutes with my my personal anecdote.
No, it's a good thing you saved that squirrel, though.
Oh, I'm sure the squirrel thinks so. Jeez, I swear, I tell you, things that happen to me on the course of a day. But other than that, how are you, my friend?
Dude, I'm good. Not as an eventful weekend, but I did go to Philly Fan Expo. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, so that was fun. How was the crowds?
It was insane, actually. It was insanely busy. We were there for probably 5 or 6 hours, and the entire time was just weaving in and out of people and just shoulder to shoulder. It was a lot.
I kind of figured the first few cons that come back are going to be pretty packed, mainly because people have been kind of shut in. They haven't been able to go to cons. John last night said this is probably the longest stretch of time that he hasn't been to a con of some type. So certainly the pandemic now and endemic has certainly changed everybody's lives. But luckily, you guys got it in this weekend, because obviously on Monday, I'm sure you heard on the news, Philadelphia has re-implemented the mask mandate. So it would have been really.
I did see that.
Yeah, it would have been real hard to do under those conditions. So so it's a good thing you managed to get in there and have a little bit of fun before everything goes backwards again.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But on to the real topic, why we're here. This has been a huge issue in the comic book community, in my opinion, over the, I don't know, maybe the last month, maybe 2 months at this point. I understand there's a paper shortage. I understand there's still a lot of delays and just issues amongst publishers, distributors, but the paper quality of at this point, I'd say it's only just Marvel. I mean, you guys have great paper over at Dynamite. Boom Studios, Image, I'm not really seeing issues with. And we can continue on with just some of even the smaller publishers. We've got AWA, Vault Comics, Scout Comics. They've got good quality paper. However, there's a lot of titles now from Marvel that are showing up like this. Like, what is going on with some of these comics? No matter how you hold it, it's not even getting spine ticked because the paper quality is just so low. It's almost like it just bends and it goes right back to its spot. I I don't know.
Well, I do know that, after we talked and said this would be the topic of the show, I did a little research. I'm certainly aware with what happened towards the end of March. It was obviously the talk amongst the community of comic fans about the low paper quality. But clearly, this has been a problem that's dated back a few years, even pre-pandemic. If you do enough Google searching, you'll find complaints about the paper quality.
I agree with that. It definitely has progressively gotten lower over the last couple of years, but
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
right.
Well, let's look at it. I guess let's look at the problem from a couple of different angles. As you mentioned, most of the independents. I heard that DC is not having this problem, although in years past there have been some complaints about inferior paper stock quality for both of the big two. So addressing it from the independent standpoint, and this is just being honest, we're not Marvel, we're not DC, and we're not making constantly every few months blockbuster films and series, and that we don't have that kind of power. So the quality of our books is not something we can mess around with, because unlike having a Moon Knight TV series premiering, or Doctor Strange multiverse around the corner, everything that our readers, our fans like, and this is not just Dynamite, this is all of them, Scout, IDW, all of the smaller independent publishers. The true value and the quality of our product is in the books themselves. So we really can't get away with that. If faced with this situation, we would probably look to cut titles of releases. If it was a true paper shortage that just, we're looking at this like the only way we can do this is if we double up the cover price, and we can't do that. And so what options do you have? Probably, and I don't speak even for Dynamite because I'm not on the editorial end of the business, but the most logical course would be we're just going to have to cut some of the titles. All right. And because you don't have enough paper, so you got to print the more popular titles, and maybe some of the least popular titles you're going to have to cut that month, whatever the case may be, until this evens out, because everything that people like about the independent publishers is in the books themselves, whether it be the story, the art, but also the quality of the books themselves. So we can't get away with that. That's straight up how it is. We do it, people stop reading our books. Well, I don't, Dynamite doesn't have next month, oh, well, sales on our issues are a little bit weak, but we've got the big movie coming out. We don't have that to lean on. So I think that's part of it, and that's unfortunate why, and although it doesn't always happen this way, but technically in the books, it's illegal to have a monopoly. And this is why. When you have even a handful of large companies that control a market, things like this can happen, and they do happen, unfortunately. So
I mean, not to get off subject, but we absolutely see that with just Wi-Fi and internet connections too.
Absolutely. Comcast had a stranglehold on, especially in the area that I live in, on cable, and I was probably one of the first that tried to cut the cord. And at one point, luckily, my daughter was young enough that what we did was we watched a lot of DVDs of animated movies, and at a young age, they just want to watch the same movie like a million times. So it wasn't a real big problem. But at one point I was trying to stream shows. This was at the beginning stages of Hulu and the rest of them. I would be using a little MiFi card because I was trapped. The only other option was
Yep.
to put a dish, on my roof and get a dish TV or something like that. But even then, they made it very, very clear if you want internet connection, you have to still go to Comcast, and they have some sort of bundle deal. At that time, Dish and DirecTV. So I'm right back where I started. So you're right. I mean, there is that possibility. So, what's driving this? I think we may have touched on this before. The other disadvantage when you have a company the size of Marvel as opposed to an independent publisher like Dynamite or IDW is since we're much smaller, it's much more likely that everybody we hire, even somebody say in our operations department or even reception or whatever, they have some connection to comics. Okay. They're a comic fan, as you met Amy a million times, she's a comic book fan. She's an MCU fan. She's going to the movie theaters. I mean, I think she already bought her Doctor Strange tickets, so she's going to be there on premiere evening. So we all have some connection to it. So we have an intuitive understanding of what comic fans, we may disagree on who we like. Like I generally disagree with everybody on their outtake on Cyclops, but we all understand the basics of why we pick up a comic. And it's not something you can always put into words. But say you're an accountant, okay, and you're not a comic book fan, and you've watched the movies every now and again, but you really don't, you've never felt the need to go and buy a comic book because of them. So you take a job as an accountant, and this is all hypothetical. You take a job as an accountant at Marvel, and you become CFO or whatever. And you look at the numbers, a bunch of spreadsheets, and you go, if we start to reduce the paper quality, this is how much we can save every year. And for the number of comics and number of pages, and a number of issues, I have no doubt in my mind that can really add up. Especially if
I'm sure.
You keep your retail price the same. All of that becomes profit, found money. Now, why would somebody in accounting make that decision? Because they don't understand the nature of it. They don't understand why. I'm sure they're scratching their heads. Why don't these fans just start reading digital comics like people are reading books now, like Kindle, things like that? It doesn't make any sense. They don't understand that part of it. The physical book, the quality of the book, the book being near mint as opposed to very fine. Why do we get them slabbed? Why is this issue important? All those intangibles are lost on them. So to them, it seems like a very savvy move to just get ahead and go to a much lower paper quality, a lighter stock. And I think that they overplayed their hand because they saw an opportunity, because clearly it's something that's been gradually happening through the years. So they had an initial, I want to say 2014, 2015, I think this issue first came out. So gradually that died off, and I don't think they really improved the paper stock. So people kind of accepted it. So maybe, and again, this is all conjecture, this is all hypothetical. Maybe they thought, well, with the pandemic and supply chain issues and all of that, and there is a paper shortage, maybe we can lighten it again and see what happens. Not really understanding that they had crossed a threshold, in that, it's not acceptable that my comic makes an L when I hold it on one end.
And then it goes back to normal.
Yeah, and the accountant scratching his head going, what difference does it make? It's a comic book.
Yep. Because
he doesn't understand those intangibles, and that's how I think. I hypothesize that this may have evolved into it, because I don't think, and I'm not saying, they're out to save the world or anything. Every large corporation is driven by one thing. Even very small corporations are driven by one thing, and that's profitability. So nobody looks to piss off their customer. Okay. Even those fast food chains, whatever, they don't look to, piss off their customers. I mean, think about Subway. When people accuse them that they weren't using real tuna, man, they're like, no way. They were to the wall fighting back against that. That's absolutely a lie, because they know. Now, is it fake tuna or not? I don't know. I don't eat Subway. I can't stand Subway. That's just personal. Unless Subway wants to sponsor our AR show, then I retract that statement. Okay.
No, I totally agree with you and everything you said. And that's In my opinion, that's hitting it like completely nail on the head. I do have a small conspiracy that kind of goes back to what you just
Wait,
said.
let me get
Like,
my tinfoil hat. Hold
I was
on a
gonna say
second. No, I'm
mine's
kidding.
been on. I keep mine on at all times. Now, all
Is
the
it
stuff you were saying,
invisible? Is it
uh,
invisible, Alec?
right now it is.
Now you're getting crazy. Okay, now come on. There's no such thing as an invisible tinfoil hat. You have to be able to see it.
Maybe that's the conspiracy too. Maybe you just can't see it. But
Here we go.
so with that, you said years ago they started to lower the quality. And I noticed that a little while ago too. I think the one of the big first issues that I really noticed it on was the end of the Donny Cates' Venom series. I think it was issue 35. That was horrible paper quality. And that was, I think, like an $8 or $9 issue because, you know, it was a big series finale. My little conspiracy theory is that they have been, like you said, you've got people in accounting and you've got people who aren't comic book fans or they're not fans of this stuff. So they're looking at numbers. They're trying to look at how they can save as much money as possible. So they swapped to a certain piece of paper and it did not go over well. People were posting pictures. They were saying, look at this low quality. This is garbage. And now they're saying, "Oh, well, we've got the pandemic. We're in a paper shortage. Come on, guys, we're in a bad paper shortage. You know, we're having trouble getting a hold of this type. We're having trouble doing this." Then why am I holding up this extremely cheap piece of paper? Well, this cheap comic book that cost me $3.99, but I can also buy the same thing from Marvel same week for $3.99 as well, and it's printed on, you know, better paper. My thinking is that they're trying to see which type of paper will piss the least amount of people off. But they're also looking at it as, all right, we've got this series that we really don't think is going to sell all that well. We're expecting these types of sales. For example, maybe Spider-Punk. This is a brand new series. I think it's just a limited run. But come on, let's be honest here. Spider-Punk, it was a great first issue in my opinion, but this isn't something that's going to be groundbreaking for Marvel here. So say they have certain amount of expectations for sales and they're going to print it on this horribly cheap, disgusting piece of paper. But they're like, because we printed it on this cheap piece of paper, we expected these sales no matter what. But because now it's on this cheap paper, we're going to be making this amount of money compared to what we would have made if we printed it on regular paper. And now that we printed it on this cheap paper, it actually didn't affect sales at all, maybe a little bit less, but we still sold roughly what we thought we were going to, but we made an insane amount of money by saving it on this paper. So I think going forward, what they're testing is how far can they truly go with this paper on these lower end series that they really have no expectations for to begin with. I think going forward, maybe, you know, Amazing Spider-Man and Thor and Hulk and the series that everyone constantly is looking forward to all the time, that's going to be printed on the nice paper because those dedicated fans, there's a lot more of them and those numbers are going to be high no matter what. But a Spider-Punk series where maybe out of 10 people that walk into the store, maybe only 4 of them, maybe 5 at absolute most are going to buy it no matter what. We're going to print it on this very cheap paper. And going forward, we're going to continue to print it on this very cheap paper because we're still getting our sales. We weren't expecting a lot to begin with, but we're still getting them. But now our profits are even higher. That's my little conspiracy. I think they're just, to sum it up, that they're going to be putting the lower end books on the very low end paper while the bigger sale books are going to be on higher end paper because it, you know, they don't want to piss off the mass amount of people, just a small amount of people, you know, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah. I mean, there could be something to be said about that, but I truly think that they don't have a. I don't think they really have a plan. I think that the statement they released, you know, that they're going back to the better paper or the slightly better paper, shows that they realized that they had crossed over a line and they had to backpedal. Now, what you're saying could be true or could become true, but I don't know. They've thought it through that far. I really don't. I think that the whole issue in and of itself demonstrated a kind of, I don't know, a kind of not reading the room type of action. And I think that they were equally surprised at the pushback that they got, you know, not realizing that, you know, they're probably basing it on what happened in a few years ago when they said, yeah, well, you know, some people complain, but at the end of the day, you know, that died down.
That
So
too.
maybe they were thinking it was going to be like this again, and somebody didn't read the room. Ooh, excuse me. And somehow they kind of crossed a threshold, if you will, that nobody's going to accept this type of paper quality, and they didn't realize it. So now they're trying to backpedal. So although they may come to that decision later on, I don't think it. I'm not disagreeing with the possibility of it. I just don't think that they've even thought that far ahead. They really have.
Some of those guys, maybe they're paid to think like that. They're paid to test whatever,
Because
but to go against what I just.
Here's why I don't think so. Because the same thing, the same kind of ignorance, if you will, that caused this problem in the first place, you would have to not have that ignorance in order to plan that. Because what you're talking about, I understand what you're saying, is based on greed, but also now an intuitive understanding. Okay? Because you're thinking you understand, well, we're only going to piss off a handful of people, okay? But the more popular titles, we don't want to piss them off. But that shows, that kind of planning kind of shows that you have to have some understanding that this is going on and why it's going on. And they haven't shown that, because if they did, they wouldn't have done this in the first place. They would have known this is threshold. Okay, you're not going to be able to print it on this paper because it makes an L when somebody holds it at the end. Okay, and comic book, customers are going to be pissed off, and there has to be a kind of intuitive understanding in order to pull that conspiracy off, because you have to know then that we can only use titles that we assume are going to sell to occasional comic readers, not your diehards. And you're going to have to be able to identify those titles. And as everybody knows, even Marvel and DC, they can take an educated guess, but they don't know what's going to fly. They don't know what's going to take off. I mean, look,
You're
Straight Off, another perfect example, right? Nobody saw that one coming. So,
that was a lucky one, though.
Yeah, but it happens, right? And the more titles you publish, the more likely it is to happen. It becomes a numbers game. So I just, for lack of a better term, I don't think that they know enough to be able to come up with that plan. It's too intricate. It's like this is where I guess for me, conspiracy theories kind of they're true up to a point, but then they fall short, and they fall short because as you start to fill in more and more of those pieces, it becomes such an elaborate plan that, man, it's almost impossible. It's like at one point when conspiracy theorists said that the pandemic was fake. It was something implemented by the U.S. government and blah blah blah, and the theories became more elaborate. And when you listen to them enough, you're like, yeah, that could be true. But for me, it always stopped at one point. In order for your conspiracy theory, the conspiracy theorists that the pandemic was fake, in order for that to be true, that means every other country on the face of the earth is in on this conspiracy. And you can't get two countries to even agree when they're going to have talks or what they're going to serve at the talks for lunch, let alone be able to be so lockstep with each other that they could pull off this huge conspiracy and none of us would ever find out. And that's kind of what I'm saying here, is that what you're talking about, to me, takes a level of sophistication and understanding of the comic book reader and the market itself that they don't have it. They really don't have it. Because if they did, Morpheus and Eternals never would have happened. Or not Morpheus, Morbius and Eternals. I keep doing that. I have I know. I absolutely have Morpheus on the brain for some reason.
Now, I mean, that one was by Sony. And I do have a hell of a conspiracy to go with that one too. I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
Yeah, right, all right. But
this one makes more sense, though. I'll tell you that.
Well, let me say this. I don't see them planning that far in advance. And here's the other thing. There's always a danger. There's going to be somebody in that building saying, you can't test how pissed off people are going to get by pushing them and making them pissed off to that point. Say, oh, that was too far. Okay, that was too far. We pissed them off now. Because there's always a danger of that blowback. What's the damage that's going to come from that? And can we quantify it? And can we absorb it? Not sure. I mean, I've heard the other conspiracy was, I heard, it was their Marvel's master plan to push people to digital comics.
I don't think that. I don't think that's the case either.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, because I think Marvel's smart enough to recognize that if you push everything to digital comics, that there's some value. Maybe the accountant doesn't even understand what the value is in the physical books, But obviously there is something that he or she doesn't understand. So people are still buying. They're still paying you $3.99 cover price at minimum to buy these. They're still buying the omnibuses, the trade paperback. So there's something about the physical feel, and you're profiting from that. If it all goes to digital, how long is it going to be before we all know that ultimately, if it all converts to digital, the prices will come down. Okay, they will come down. They will come down dramatically. And that's been proven by Kindle books of all types. All right. I mean, when at one point before that revolution really started to take place in literature or in books, what was happening was there was no way that you would be able to pick a book for less than, I think by the time, Barnes and Nobles, places like that stopped doing real big business, somewhere in the vicinity of like a paperback was going to cost you anywhere from $6.99 to $11.99, right? And yeah, they had their bargain basement bins, or dollar boxes, if you will, but it's not like comics. I've never read this guy before. I'm looking at the back, and I'm looking, maybe flipping through some pages and trying to determine. I'm looking at the artist rendering on the cover, trying to figure that out. Can't really do it now. I go to Kindle. There are free books that are available with Amazon Prime. There's 99-cent books that I'll check out. All right, just it's 99 cents. I'll read it. It sounds like
why not?
Yeah, exactly. And it's available to everybody. So ultimately, I've never paid $8.99, $12.99 for a book again. So there is kind of a precedence for that, and I would believe that Marvel and its executive branch would look at that and say, well, that's not what we want. We don't want to push everybody to digital comics, because if they all go to digital comics, we're going to lose money. The content, because right now you get the double dip. It's the same. You have your artist, you have your writer, you have your cover artist, and they're creating the book for you. Now you sell it in digital format, you sell it in the print format, but your cost of creating that book is a one-time cost. You're not paying the writer and the artist twice, because it's in digital and it's in print. But if you take away print and there's only digital, well, I don't think the artist is going to say, oh, well, since you're not selling print anymore, I'll give you a discount. No.
That's not going to happen. Still same art.
Right.
Same
They're
art.
going to want the same amount of money. So all of a sudden, by attrition, your cost begins to go up, because now you're selling less, but you're paying out the same to create the product that you're selling less of, right? Economies of scale.
I totally agree with that. I
totally don't believe it was a conspiracy to push anyone to digital comics.
Yeah, I refuse to believe that one too. Even people who will, back on the wall. Yeah, I truly believe that they're going to work towards digital. It just, like you just literally explained, it doesn't make logical sense.
Right.
But with everything I said, I mean, I'm going to believe, obviously, my conspiracy. I like that one.
Straighten up the hat a little bit.
We truly can just believe that they really are having paper issues, whether it is a paper shortage on their end. They can't get a hold of certain paper, so maybe they decide to put the crappier stuff on maybe the lower end books. Because going back just even a couple weeks, we'll start at the middle of last month. Actually, that's a pretty bad example too. So over even just the last couple months, we'll start at basically the beginning of March. Marvel had only 11 books. Actually, looks like Marvel's got, 6, 12, 18. They got 19 books coming out at the pretty much beginning of March. Then the 16th, it drops tremendously down to 8 books. The 23rd, back up to a huge week of books. The 30th, same thing, a huge week. But all of a sudden, when all of these big paper issues started happening, which was roughly around the same time, all of a sudden, the beginning of April, a little bit lower. We're only at 14 books instead of the usual 18 to 20. The 13th comes along, and now we're officially down to just 11 books coming out this week for New Comic Book Day, when just a few months ago, we were typically looking around 18 to 20 to 22 books for Marvel. But all of these books are just becoming, maybe they're having all of these issues. Maybe they can't get a hold of this. They can't get a hold of that. So it's turning into, well, we really are having this paper shortage. We really can't produce these books on this. So we're just dropping the amount of books. We're dropping the amount of variants we're doing. We had all of this slotted. We had all of this planned. And, we can't do it now. So maybe, like, to literally go against everything I just said, they actually are having a big issue with paper.
Well, here's what I think. I think that again, I don't believe that there was a conspiracy, if you will, in the sense that they were planning to test the threshold or planning to use it for the weaker titles. I genuinely think that they were looking to save on the bottom line, and
Probably.
I think that whatever accounting department or accounting executive made the decision was genuinely confused and probably scratching his head at that time, going, "What? Why is everybody so pissed off?" You know. But alluding to what you were saying is what I find interesting is that the world has certainly changed and it has become
Things
more,
are different.
well, I mean it in a different way. The world has become more polar. You have people on one side of the spectrum all the way, and you have people on the other side of the spectrum all the way. And our thinking has kind of altered as well. The reason I say this is I think that why can't, with the exception of the concerted plan, but why can't it all be true? You see what I'm saying? Why can't it be, yeah, this started happening years ago when some accountant said, hey, you know how much money we can save if we use cheaper stock? And coupled with the fact that, there is a supply chain shortage that's occurring. So all those things can exist at the same time, and they can all be part of the problem. Since you got your tinfoil hat on, I'll throw in I'll buzz you another conspiracy theory. Perhaps it is what happened in 2014 or 2015 when they went from the same stock that you see the indies use to that slightly cheaper stock that got pushed back, but not anything like this. Then they slid to the even cheaper stock. How do we know? Maybe the higher stock paper, I don't know this for a fact, has less of a shortage problem than that medium one that they had dropped to. And that's what, that's where part of that shortage is coming in. Is maybe that's in very high demand for some reason. I don't know, I'm not a paper industry expert or anything like that, but just as a theory. So if they had never moved from the higher quality to the medium quality and then to the lower quality, maybe they wouldn't have run into a supply chain issue. Because I know that, I'm not part of the editorial department, but I haven't heard any buzz here or from the others, independent publishers that the higher stock paper has been, has it been more expensive? It certainly has. I mean, the biggest problem that we were facing here internally from a paper standpoint was, believe it or not, long boxes, short boxes. They were becoming increasingly hard to get. Bags and boards.
I was going to say even bags and boards.
Yeah, those types of things hit us. That we started to buy in the summer in much larger amounts just to have them because we were afraid that at some point the supply would end. But in terms of the printing, no, we haven't really run into any problems that I know of. So that might be an added level. But again, I believe that all these things can exist at the same time.
I think so too.
Probably part of the problem.
And yeah, like everything you just said, I like my theories. I like your theories, but honestly, when it boils down to it, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a nice mix of everything. Maybe because of everything, they were able to maybe sneakily use just a little bit lower quality and blame it on the pandemic, blame it on this. They're testing the water, seeing what they can and can't get away with. Maybe.
In future shows, I believe that whenever we talk about conspiracy theories, both of us should have a tinfoil hat that we can put on for that segment.
I'll keep it on.
It might be dangerous driving and stuff, and you're gonna have to duck down in low doorways. But I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna solve this problem. I mean, they're the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, so they got a lot of pull. They can get away with a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say whatever they do, people are still going to buy comics. And I mean, sadly, including myself, as long as the quality of the story stays, that's what's going to have me.
Exactly.
Hopefully they fix the paper quality though. That's a big one too.
Yeah. I think they realized based on their comments, I think they realized that they went too far. They have to pull back from that threshold. So I don't expect to see the same problem in the near future, but down the line, who knows?
We'll see. But we did hit 34 minutes, which is 4 minutes past the 30-minute mark that we were aiming for. We always go over. It just happens to be that way. So I just want to say thank you for joining me today in this discussion and hearing me out on my, wild little conspiracies. And everybody that will be future tuning in, please comment down below. Let us know. was these crazy ideas. What are you thinking about this whole paper shortage and just the quality of Marvel? I want to hear about the quality of other books as well, what you're thinking. And Rex, as always, thank you so much for everything. I really do appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy.
It's a pleasure, my friend. And one last thing, the PSA, donate to your local no-kill shelter. They need your help.
Absolutely. And tune in tonight. I'm going to be on The Experience. Everything is listed down low in the description. And Rex, you want to talk about that for a quick second?
We're going to have some great stuff. I've overloaded tonight's show with cover sketch art and CGC slab 9.8s. But we'll have signed comics, the usual cast of product comic books that we normally have. And John will be here, and obviously you'll be joining us tonight. So it should be a good time. And who knows, we might take this up again.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody, and thank you again, Rex. And we'll see you guys at the stream. Thank you again. Have a good night.